Let's dig deeply into the most fascinating blank slate Goldman is wrestling with right now.
Harry Potter.
Harry Potter. He is currently charged with constructing the visual foundation for one of the most beloved, heavily scrutinized fictional worlds in modern literary history.
The pressure must be insane.
It really must be. According to his masterclass, the blueprint he's using represents a massive departure from everything audiences have previously associated with the franchise.
Right. The visual thesis driving this new television adaptation is what Goldman terms an anti-reference perspective when compared to the original, highly successful feature films directed by Chris Columbus in the early 2000s.
That revelation is going to shock a lot of fans.
Oh, absolutely.
Those early films, The Sorcerer's Stone and The Chamber of Secrets, are considered visually iconic by an entire generation.
They are. Yet the primary creative brain trust for the new series, which includes Goldman, the lead director Mark Mylod, the showrunner Francesca Gardner, and the production designer Marla Peer-Schlup.
Quite the team.
Yeah, they collectively examined those early films and reached the consensus that they have become distinctly problematically dated. Goldman categorizes the visual language of the Chris Columbus era as exceedingly cartoony.
Yeah, cartoony is the word. You look at those early movies, and the aesthetic is undeniably rooted in a fairy tale tradition.
Very vibrant.
Exactly. They relied heavily on intensely saturated primary colors. The performances were slightly heightened and theatrical.
And fundamentally, they utilized very specific camera optics. Lots of wide-angle lenses that inherently distort the edges of the frame.
Making the environments feel vast, slightly warped, and heavily skewed toward a whimsical, almost comedic tone.
Right, it's a visual language designed to make you feel like a child opening a brightly colored storybook.
But the mandate handed down for the new HBO series is a severe 180-degree pivot away from that whimsy.
A total departure.
The overarching directive is to craft a world that feels incredibly grounded, undeniably realistic, and aggressively contemporary in its execution, even within a period setting.
They are striving for a tangible, weighty reality where the environments feel lived in and consequential.
And the most staggering example of this grounded approach is how they are tackling the core concept of magic itself.
This part blew my mind.
Same. The creative team actually recruited Brian Cox,
The particle physicist.
the globally renowned particle physicist. They brought him in to deliver a masterclass to the production heads.
That is incredible.
They sat down with a literal physicist to dissect what specific physical and chemical phenomena occurring in the natural world genuinely evoke a feeling of magic in the human brain.
They were stripping away the fantasy to look at the mechanics of awe.
Exactly. They studied the visual properties of intense magnetism, the specific ways light behaves during the aurora borealis, the physics of plasma and energy displacement.
So they sought to root the visual manifestation of spells and magical occurrences in organic, observable physical laws, rather than relying on the arbitrary, weightless flash of a computer-generated laser beam.
Right, like if a spell produces light, how does that light realistically cast shadows on the environment?
Or if it produces heat, how does it distort the air in front of the lens?
Exactly. But why pursue this massive tonal shift? Why abandon the colorful, beloved fairy tale aesthetic in favor of particle physics and gritty realism? To inject that level of darkness and grounded realism into one of the most profitable, highly merchandised children's properties on the planet is currently generating massive friction behind the scenes.
Unsurprisingly.
Yeah. Goldman detailed an intense creative battle taking place in the post-production coloring suites over the very first episode.
Oh, the privet drive stuff.
Exactly. This is the crucial introductory hour where Harry is still trapped living with the abusive Dursley family in the 1990s, completely unaware of his magical heritage.
Goldman's operating philosophy for this specific sequence, what he refers to as Harry's real life, was that the cinematography needed to aggressively reflect the emotional reality of that existence.
Which is bleak.
Very. He intended to visually communicate how profoundly difficult, isolating, and sad Harry's mundane life truly is.
So, to achieve this, he intentionally shot the privet drive sequences to feel stark, desaturated, and visually oppressive.
He fully leaned into the aesthetic reality of early 1990s suburban Britain.
But when the studio executives at Warner Bros. Reviewed the initial footage, they hit the panic button.
This is the classic collision point between artistic intent and corporate anxiety.
Yep.
I mean, when you are dealing with a franchise that represents billions of dollars in global revenue, risk aversion is the default setting for executives.
The studio scrutinized this grounded, melancholic aesthetic and immediately worried that it was simply too depressing for a general audience.
Which led to highly contentious debates during the color correction phase regarding exactly how vibrant and cheerful that initial episode was allowed to be.
And we actually witnessed the fallout of this exact battle play out in real time with the release of the first promotional material.
The teaser, yeah.
Goldman specifically referenced the early teaser known as the Red Bill trailer, where the studio took his meticulously crafted, desaturated, sad footage and essentially ran it through a digital warming filter.
It's crazy they did that.
How do you light a scene on set to make your intention as tamper-proof as possible?
That's the million-dollar question.
Despite the post-production interference, Goldman remains a master at wielding those emotional weapons during the actual physical production. To understand how he defends his vision, we have to examine exactly how he constructs his images on set.
Beginning with his absolute foundational philosophy.
The single source approach.
The single source philosophy is the cornerstone of Goldman's entire visual aesthetic.
Okay, break that down for us.
Whether he was tasked with lighting the Queen of England in the ornate halls of Buckingham Palace, illuminating a desperate band of rebels deep in outer space on Andor, or framing a young wizard locked in a suburban cupboard, his primary objective is to implement a single source approach to his lighting design.
By that, he means he strives to make every environment, and specifically every actor's face within that environment, appear as though it is being naturally illuminated by one solitary, dominant source of light in the real world.
Most commonly, a window or a single practical lamp.
Right.
The human brain is evolutionarily hardwired to expect a single source of light because we evolved under a single sun.
That's profound.
It is. Goldman exploits that subconscious expectation. He possesses a deeply ingrained pet peeve. He absolutely despises seeing more than one shadow cast across an actor's face.
Oh, interesting.
In a typical, less rigorous television production, cinematographers will often use multiple lights hitting a face from various angles to ensure everything is clearly visible.
Which creates multiple shadows.
The result is multiple intersecting shadows falling across the nose and cheeks.
Yeah.
Goldman argues this instantly feels artificial.
It shatters the subconscious illusion of reality.
Exactly. He demands a clean, classic, singular shadow that mimics the behavior of natural light.
But his obsession extends far beyond just managing shadows. It is intensely focused on the eyes themselves.
Yes, the eye sparkles.
Goldman confessed to an absolute fixation on capturing what he affectionately refers to as eye sparkles.
The precise technical terminology is a cat's light, but calling it an eye sparkle much more accurately conveys the psychological magic it achieves on screen.
Right, he considers it an absolute necessity to capture a tiny glint of reflected light within the dark pupil of the actor's eye.
He argues that this microscopic reflection is the specific visual anchor that allows a viewer's subconscious to connect with a character's interior soul.
An unlit, matte black eye feels dead and unreadable on screen.
And Goldman will go to extraordinary lengths to secure that tiny glint.
Like what?
He will physically halt production and request the director to entirely rework the blocking of a scene, moving the actors inches closer to a physical window just to ensure that the natural light catches the cornea at the precise necessary angle.
That's dedication.
It is. And in situations where the blocking demands the actor remain deep in the room, far from the window, he employs highly specific practical trickery.
Ah, the dash lights.
Yes. He utilizes these miniaturized LED light panels. He refers to them as Roscoe dash lights, which are small enough to be easily hidden behind furniture or props on set.
So he just aims those at their eyes.
He will aim these tiny units specifically and exclusively at the actor's face with the sole intention of creating that glint in the eye, painstakingly shaping the beam so it doesn't spill over and contaminate the rest of his meticulously crafted single-source lighting environment.
The relentless march of visual effects technology is forcing Goldman to compromise his preferred toolkit on the new Harry Potter series.
Yeah, this was a tough blow for him.
He shot the first season utilizing the ARRI Alexa 35 camera, which captures a beautiful 4K image and is widely considered the gold standard for cinematic texture.
But he revealed that for the upcoming second season, he's being conscripted into a technological arms race.
The studio is forcing him to abandon the Alexa and switch to the Sony Venice 2 camera system, utilizing Primo 70 lenses.
And the mandate for this massive equipment overhaul has absolutely nothing to do with Goldman's artistic preferences.
It is entirely dictated by the demands of the visual effects department.
Consider the logistical nightmare of creating a character like Hagrid.
Oh, right.
To make the half-giant appear massive on screen, the production films a normal-sized actor on set, and then the VFX team digitally extracts him from the frame and scales him up to twice his original size in post-production.
But the physics of digital images present a hard limit there. When you take a cluster of pixels representing an actor and stretch them to cover twice as much screen real estate, you fundamentally lose resolution.
The image becomes soft, blurry, and degraded.
So to combat that digital degradation, the VFX department issued an ultimatum. Goldman must deliver his raw footage at a staggering 5.4K resolution at minimum.
They require an incredibly massive, pixel-dense digital canvas so that when they stretch Hagrid's image, there's enough residual data left over for him to remain sharp.
Goldman candidly admitted that while this ultra-high resolution is a lifesaver for the VFX team, it is a nightmare for him.
It forces him to entirely abandon his preferred workflow. It forces him to spend weeks testing new lenses that can cover the larger Sony sensor.
And forces his crew to manage exponentially larger amounts of digital data, all merely to service the technical requirements of the special effects pipeline.
It's a prime illustration of the reality that even a master DP ultimately serves at the pleasure of the larger production machine. He fully embraces his role as a diplomat, a pragmatist, and a collaborator within a massive industrial apparatus.
The schedule dictates that they cannot shoot the scenes chronologically.
They are forced to shoot highly emotional sequences wildly out of order simply because a specific hallway set happens to be available that morning.
The cinematographer is essentially forced into speedrunning high-art visual design while navigating a logistical minefield.
Because the pace is so frantic, and because the production absolutely cannot rely on bringing the kids back for reshoots due to their locked schedules, the directors understandably begin to panic about missing crucial story beats.
Mark Mylod, the lead director, came directly from directing Succession, a show famous for its chaotic, documentary-style shooting, where cameras simply roll constantly to capture unscripted moments.
Driven by the fear of missing something vital in Harry Potter, Mylod's instinct was to start throwing additional cameras at every scene, solely to provide a safety net for the editors to use later.
This practice introduces a severe industrial danger that Goldman bluntly labels as suicidal overshooting. He provided a genuinely horrific anecdote regarding a massive Quidditch match sequence filmed for episode 7.
Driven by the director's desire to capture every possible nuance of the crowd reacting to the aerial game, the camera crews rolled constantly, shooting an agonizing 7 hours of raw footage in a single day.
7 hours consisting entirely of background actors merely cheering, gasping, and looking at tennis balls on sticks.
Goldman was losing his mind on set, desperately trying to convince the director that more is not always more.
His frustration is entirely justified because of the psychological reality of what happens later in the editing room.
When a television editor is confronted with 7 hours of random reaction shots, they become overwhelmed by the sheer volume of data.
Goldman recounted a painful experience watching a rough cut of a dialogue scene set in a pub in Hogsmeade.
The editor, needing to bridge a gap in the dialogue, needed a quick cutaway shot.
Instead of using a carefully composed insert, the editor simply grabbed a random piece of B-camera footage, depicting an extra awkwardly standing up from a table in the deep background.
Goldman stated it was undeniably the worst, most vulgarly lit, poorly composed shot they'd accidentally captured all day.
Yet it made it into the final cut simply because it existed as an option within a massive, uncurated mountain of digital footage. How does a master craftsman swallow his immense pride when he spends hours setting up a gorgeous, emotionally resonant A-camera shot, meticulously capturing the perfect eye sparkle, only to have the editor bypass it entirely in favor of a flatly lit, accidental B-camera shot of an extra standing up in a pub?
It perfectly illustrates the ultimate trade-off at the heart of commercial art. A cinematographer can choose to operate on small, independent projects where they maintain total creative sovereignty, but their beautiful work might only be seen by a few thousand people.
Or they can choose to step into the belly of a massive machine like Harry Potter, where they are forced to compromise daily with executives, VFX supervisors, and scheduling constraints.
But the immense reward for navigating that gauntlet is that their specific visual language will be broadcast globally, directly impacting the imaginations of hundreds of millions of people.
And Goldman actively leans into the pride of that scale. He knows he is forging visual iconography that will outlive him, touching millions of lives.